I always thought I had things under control. At 19, I was just figuring life out, between college classes, part-time work, and adjusting to the changes in our household. Ever since Dad remarried, things at home had shifted. It wasn't bad, just different. And my stepmother, Claire, well, she was different too. Younger than most people expected, just a few years older than my oldest cousin, she brought a kind of modern energy to our home. At first, I kept my distance. I didn't know where I fit anymore, or even how I felt about her. But everything changed on one strange afternoon. It started like any other weekend. My dad had left early for a golf tournament with his coworkers, and I was home alone. Or so I thought. I had my earbuds in, blasting music while cleaning up my room, humming along with the lyrics. I didn't even notice the soft footsteps down the hall or the faint creak of the bathroom door next to my room. I figured I was alone and didn't give much thought to locking anything. That would prove to be a mistake. After an hour of chores, I realized I needed a shower. Covered in dust and sweat from lifting boxes and wiping down bookshelves, I grabbed a towel and made my way to the bathroom. I didn't knock. I didn't check. I just walked in, pulled the door shut behind me, and turned toward the sink to drop off my towel. That's when it happened. Claire was standing by the mirror, her face halfway covered in a white clay mask. Her eyes locked with mine in the mirror, wide with surprise. She wasn't fully dressed, just wearing a towel wrapped hastily around her chest, damp from what looked like a quick rinse under the shower. I froze. She gasped. Time stood still for a second, then exploded into chaos. "Oh my God, Jason!" she shouted, clutching the towel tighter. I turned around so fast I nearly slipped on the mat. I didn't know you were here. I thought you were at the salon today." "I was. But I came home early." "You didn't hear me?" she asked from behind me. "No. I had my music up, really loud. I swear, I had no idea." She sighed, a mix of amusement and awkward tension hanging in the air. Okay. It's fine. Just give me a second to finish up in here." I bolted out of the bathroom like I was fleeing a crime scene and slammed the door to my room shut, my heart pounding. My cheeks were burning with embarrassment, and I flopped onto the bed, groaning into a pillow. I had walked in on my stepmother. Of all the people in the world, why her? For the rest of the day, I avoided her. I stayed holed up in my room, pretending to study and hoping the whole thing would blow over. But I couldn't stop thinking about it, not because of anything inappropriate, but because of how vulnerable and human she seemed in that moment. It was the first time I saw her not as my dad's new wife, but as a real person. Someone who was figuring things out, too. Later that evening, a soft knock came on my door. "Jason." Claire's voice was gentle. "Yeah," I replied without looking up. "Can we talk for a minute?" I hesitated but eventually got up and opened the door. She was dressed casually now, her hair tied up, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She handed one to me and walked over to sit on the edge of the couch in the living room. I followed and sat across from her. "About earlier," she began. "That was awkward. But I want you to know I'm not mad. Things like that happen." "Still," I said, gripping the mug, "I should have knocked. I was being careless." She smiled. "Honestly, I should have told you I was home. I was trying not to be in the way." We sat there for a while, sipping the hot chocolate in silence. "It's been weird, hasn't it?" she asked. "What do you mean?" "Me being here. Being your stepmom." I shrugged. "A little, yeah. I didn't expect Dad to get remarried so soon. But you're not. You're not bad or anything. I just didn't know how to talk to you." She nodded slowly. "I get that. You know, I was nervous, too. I didn't want to step on your toes. I know how close you and your dad are." I looked up at her. For the first time, I noticed the sincerity in her expression. "You don't have to walk on eggshells. I guess I was afraid you were trying to replace my mom." "I could never do that," she said quickly. I respect what your mom meant to you and your dad. I'm not here to erase anyone. I nodded. Her words sat with me for a moment, comforting in their honesty. That night, for the first time since she moved in, we actually talked. Not just small talk about groceries or chores, but real conversations, about books we liked, the kind of music we listened to, and what we both hoped for in the future. Claire told me how she met my dad at a charity fundraiser, how she didn't expect to fall for someone older, but how he made her laugh more than anyone else ever had. I told her about my dream of becoming a graphic designer and my struggles balancing school and work. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, our relationship changed. I no longer saw her as this unfamiliar outsider. She became part of my daily life, someone I could talk to about things I couldn't always share with my friends. She had a calming presence, the kind that made the house feel warmer. One rainy afternoon, I came home from campus completely drenched. My umbrella had flipped inside out halfway through my walk, and I was miserable. Claire was in the kitchen, making soup. She looked up and laughed. "You look like a drowned raccoon," she said, grabbing a towel. "Thanks," I mumbled, dripping all over the tile. "Go take a hot shower. I'll leave some soup out for you." I nodded and headed upstairs. This time, I knocked. No answer. I opened the door cautiously and stepped in. The moment reminded me of that first awkward encounter, but now it just made me smile. After the shower, I came downstairs, dry and warm, and sat with Claire by the fireplace. It became a routine. Dinners together, movie nights, even the occasional trip to the grocery store. Dad was often away on business, but somehow, the house didn't feel empty anymore. Claire had filled the silence with stories, laughter, and understanding. One night, while we were watching an old comedy on TV, she turned to me and said, "You know, I'm really proud of you." I raised an eyebrow. For what? For adjusting. For being open. "I know this wasn't easy, but you've handled it better than most would." Her words meant more than I expected. I smiled. "Thanks. I guess I needed to let go of a few things to see who you really were." That odd bathroom encounter, something that once embarrassed me to no end, had become the beginning of something important. A connection. A bridge between two people thrown into each other's lives by fate and choice. The bond we developed wasn't perfect. We had disagreements, misunderstandings, and a few tense moments. But underneath all of it was mutual respect. And, eventually, care. Claire never tried to act like my mom. She never forced a relationship. She simply showed up every day, with patience and warmth, until I realized I wanted her to be part of my life. By the time my dad's birthday rolled around in the fall, we had become a team. We spent the entire day preparing a surprise party. Cooking, decorating, even baking a lopsided cake that tasted much better than it looked. When Dad walked in, confused and delighted, he looked at both of us with pride. "You two," he said, "are the best things that ever happened to me." Claire smiled and squeezed his hand. I stood beside them, knowing that while our family looked different now, it was still family.